Hey guys, you're listening to Wingin' It with Holly. In this podcast series, I'll be sharing the fun and interesting things I've learnt about birds since I started really noticing them 5 years ago. I'm no expert though, so along the way I'll be picking the brains of my knowledgeable birdie friends, the human ones that is, so we can learn and wing it together. You can see birds anywhere, in a city or the countryside, watching from a balcony or your local park. And I'm hoping these short episodes will help you notice and learn more about our feathered friends, especially if you have never taken the time to get to know them before. Whether it's birds flying into windows, birds getting stuck in chimneys, or even birds discovered injured by a predator, sometimes they need a little helping hand. So in this episode, I asked my cousin Katie, a wildlife advisor to the public, how we can help our feathered friends in these sorts of situations.
That's probably a great term, actually. So this park is so good for birds. It's so good. There was a great tit, a blue tit, a dunnock and a robin in that one header.
Yeah, I saw.
Oh, I wish the kingfishers had come back. That would have been... I remember when I first told you about that, you were like, what? And I was like, yeah, there's a pair of kingfishers in this park.
I didn't think that was possible.
I know, it's
and
nice,
then
isn't it?
I saw it 3 times in the space of 1 week, and I've never seen it again. But yeah, kingfisher in the middle of Brighton. It's glorious. So, back in my favourite place, my local park in Brighton, with my wonderful cousin. And I just wanted to ask you, similar kind of to what we've covered before, if I were to come across an injured bird, what on earth do I do? I think a lot of people really, really want to help.
Yeah.
And I mean, I often see on like sort of Facebook community notice boards, like people posting about the fact that they've maybe found a gull and it's, you know, for whatever reason, it's not okay. And people really, really want to help.
Yeah.
So how do you help? What's the best thing to do in that kind of situation?
Yeah. So, yeah, there are a whole array of situations you could find yourself in. I mean, one of the most common is window strikes. So a lot of people find garden birds, have hit their windows and they've become stunned, so they're on the floor. And kind of the best situation to do would actually be to place it in something like a shoebox, something dark, something very quiet. Place it in the house ideally, so it's warm. Obviously, if you are happy to pick it up, that's great. Place it in like a small box. Obviously, give it some holes, and just basically they tend to just need about 10 minutes to recover. They've kind of got a bit of a headache.
They sort of need to calm down, don't they?
Yeah, really, really calm down. So anything dark is really useful in that sense, because birds and any wildlife do calm down when it's dark. So yeah, if you find anything which has struck a window, sometimes they don't need that. Sometimes they will just take a few seconds and then they're off. So, but yeah, if you do ever come across a bird that you know has hit a window, is not looking as sprightly, placing it somewhere dark for a few minutes until it's more active, and then just releasing it back in the garden is absolutely fine.
So on that, I feel like in London, I've heard of quite a few situations woodcocks.
Yes.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like you don't really see woodcocks around, do you?
No.
But people in London have sort of got in contact to say, yeah, what on earth is this exotic bird?
Yeah.
It's flown into my window and is sort of just running around the garden, kind of, stunned or just sort of panicking.
Yeah.
They're interesting, aren't they? Because they often... Isn't it that they tend to hit into like skyscrapers because they're just on their migratory route over?
Yeah. So a woodcock is actually a wading bird. It's very stumpy but has a crazy long beak. So they're actually a bird that we have an influx of these around October, November time. Birds which are joining us here in the UK from places like Scandinavia, and they are also nocturnal, so they actually migrate at night. So this is the reason why places like city centres, because of the lights, the tall buildings, unfortunately woodcock are really common to find either in the street, in the centre of London, in people's gardens, which have unfortunately struck struck a window. The majority of the time, they unfortunately do die because obviously the speed at which they're flying. And it's unfortunate. It really, really is. But a lot of the time, also people find them in their gardens. So because they're more comfortable at night, if you do find something strange looking, brown, stripy, really long beak, very, very short tail, it's likely to be
quite big.
Oh yeah, they're chunky, but they're not long. So they're not long in the body. They're quite a stumpy bird. But yeah, they're chunky. But yeah, if you do find one randomly in the garden and thinking, how the hell did that get here? It's probably arrived at night. They do like to take cover. So if you do have any kind of shrubs or hedges, just leave it there. It will. They can be very nervous of people. So it's likely that at dusk that bird will fly off. If, however, it is looking worse for wear, again, placing it somewhere dark and quiet until it's ready to go again, or contacting a local wildlife rescue is absolutely fine. These birds do tend to just need a minute or two just to recover. Bless them. They're probably also exhausted if they have migrated all that way. Then they probably just need a bit of time. But yeah, it's likely if you do have one in the garden, it's by dusk, it probably would have flown off by now. But actually, I had someone call who was putting up Christmas lights in a city centre, and he came across a woodcock whilst on his cherry picker, which was wedged behind a windowsill of a building, and he was like, it's just staring at me, what do I do? And I was like, it's absolutely fine, just leave it be. It's probably found a little nook that it's quite happy in. So yeah, he just carried on putting up the Christmas lights and let it be. But yeah, an interesting bird. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, yeah, I've definitely heard of a success story of, well, obviously it's not successful that the poor thing has like landed into a window, but of it, sort of my friend sort of taking it in, keeping it in a dark place overnight, and then sort of putting it in the garden, letting it see how it's feeling, does its thing, off it went, and it was fine. So hopefully, if that were to ever happen, you Londoners or people in cities, it is just probably one of the weirdest things I think to find if you're in a city, you've never seen this bird before, and then it's just there. Yes, okay, what other, so yes, you found an injured bird. I'm not sure how I derailed onto that part of the conversation about woodcocks.
It's a really good example though, really, really good.
But
he's back.
Oh, the robin is back for some food. Oh yes, I think you were telling us about the different. So the different kind of scenarios you might find an injured bird in. So one of them being that they might crash.
Oh, Mr. Robin! He really wants to be part of this podcast.
He does. Go on. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Robin. Or Mrs. I do apologise.
It is so close to us that we can see its little fluffy brown body is just so cute. So that's one scenario that you might find an injured bird, is that it's unfortunately not sort of recognised that it's heading into a window because perhaps the light, the reflection, that can be very confusing. That's often why people choose to put like stickers on their windows. They're really easy to get nowadays from garden centres, from wildlife specific shops, anything like that. They're easy and movable as well. It doesn't stay in the window at all, but they do help break the reflection, especially in winter when the sun is lower. A lot of birds can just get confused and unfortunately hit a window. So what other situations might you find an injured bird? I mean,
I tell you what is a good one. Chimneys. We often get a lot of there's a bird down my chimney. These can be really tricky to advise on because if it's something like a gas fire, legally it can only be a gas engineer that can turn the gas off. So if you are in that situation where I can hear the bird down the chimney, a lot of the time it's things like jackdaws. I have once had someone with an owl down there, and also pigeons. So wood pigeons and feral pigeons do sometimes just take a tumble and end up down the chimney. If it is a gas fire, call a gas engineer. No doubt they would have handled this situation before. And they should be able to gain access, at least to turn the gas off for a wildlife rescue to obviously take the bird and make sure that it's okay. If it is, however, like an open chimney, you can shut all the curtains, so birds will follow paths of light. So if you know that the bird actually has access out, what you can do is shut all the curtains but leave one window or door open, and what the bird will do when it finally comes down, it will follow that light, so it should just go straight out the window. A lot of the birds, they're not necessarily unable to fly, they're just trapped, so they can actually easily fly, might just be covered in soot, but it shouldn't affect their flying skills. Also, if you are confident and you are happy to stick your hand up there and just grab the bird, it would be very grateful, or even just give it some water until a rescue can come. Chimneys are a common one. If you have that problem, you can actually easily fit a crowel on top of the chimney, which is basically it just stops the access. It's a safer option. It means that the birds don't risk falling down the chimney again, getting trapped, and they're quite common. So there are very easy ways to mitigate that situation, but that's also, chimneys are the places
tricky
that birds
situation. I might not include this in this episode, but I heard something really interesting. I think isn't it that jackdaws, they like to sit at the top of chimneys because the heat from the smoke, something like it kills the mites or something. Have you heard this?
No.
Maybe that's wrong.
They're originally like cliff nesting birds. So birds which usually nest in like kind of like caves or cliffs, historically, before obviously urbanization took place, they're looking for similar bits. So they're looking for that kind of similar structure. So if you're having like a bird nest in your chimney, it's likely to be of the corvid. So your rook, your crows, your jackdaws, because they like that close areas. But some people absolutely love having them on their chimneys. they can be really, really lovely to have. But,
I really like the sound of jackdaws. Quite unique. And then if a bird has been injured by another animal, like could be a fox, whatever, that's probably where it's in its most sticky kind of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, young birds especially are, they are at risk of predation. They're at risk of being attacked. Birds of prey like sparrowhawks, which will, as part of nature, will take other birds. However, if they're spooked and that bird has been left but it's still alive, then absolutely call a wildlife rescue. Also, we can't dodge around the subject of cats. If your neighbour has a cat, or if you have a cat and they bring a bird back, it's a very common occurrence, but they always need to go to a wildlife rescue because of the risk of septicemia from the cats. So if you do know that a baby bird has been caught, or any bird at all, best to take it to either a local vet or a wildlife rescue.
Cool. And just also to remind everyone that the website to go to contact a wildlife or find your local wildlife rescue is
it's helpwildlife.co.uk. So that's a really, really useful basic directory. You can easily pop in your postcode and it brings up all the closest rescues, including the kind of species they help, whether you've got something really strange like a woodcock, or if you've got a pigeon, garden bird, anything like that. They will list the species they focus on. So along with their contact details. So give them a call for sure.
Thank you. Are there any other scenarios that come to mind about that you often get asked about with injured birds?
I mean, they're not necessarily injured, but swans on roads are a really common one, especially during kind of winter when young swans have been pushed out of the area by their parents. It's really common for their parents to give them a bit of tough love. They want to make their territory ready for the spring, so they will get rid of the youngsters. But also adult swans can also land on wet roads, which again, with the winter sun being lower, can look like water. So you can often find a swan in the middle of a road. If it's a motorway or something like that, then it's best to call highways agency, just to kind of alert them for everyone's safety. But if you're on a road and it can be ushered to a nearby field, then that's absolutely fine. They don't need water to take off, and they quite often will feed on arable farmland. That's really normal. So if it can be kind of moved into a field off the road, that would be ideal. But again, if you're not confident, they are big birds, or you're worried that it has been injured in its kind of crash landing, either the swan sanctuary is a really good option, or again a wildlife rescue.
I'm just reminded of the time when you volunteered at a wildlife rescue and you were called out went to like chase after a swan. Wasn't it on the school grounds or something? Or maybe this happened to you several times, but I could just imagine you just like with your arms out, just like running after a swan that's just like running off into the distance.
100%. As part of a wildlife rescue, I have been in many situations where I've had to round up various wildlife, and actually swans, they're not aggressive at all. They may hiss, but as soon as you're able just to kind of pick it up, obviously we appreciate it. You would need some confidence to do that, but they just need a bit of a helping hand sometimes when they make a bit of a mistake in their landing zone. But that's happened a few times.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So there's quite a lot to take from that, I think. There's several different scenarios, and I'm sure there's probably lots more that we'll cover on other podcasts. But ultimately, I think coming from the sort of the work that we do in nature conservation, I'm always appreciative that people do always want to do. Generally, people do want to do their best when they find injured birds to help them kind of. Yeah. So, we've got to look after our wildlife, especially if the reason they're injured is probably because of sort of, human influence, like our tall buildings that sort of weren't there in the first place, or whatever it may be. Oh, the robin is back. Cool. Well, thank you, Katie. That's amazing. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have any birdie questions you'd like me to explore in this podcast, you can get in touch via my Instagram @wingingitwithholly.